What you see is what you get. Our guest today shows up authentically across all of his social media channels, through all his interactions. He knows this is good for him as a person. It's what he wants to put out into the world, showing the wins and the losses, showing it transparently, vulnerably, authentically. But he's also realized showing up is also good for business, connecting with people, meeting people where they're at. He wants to show the good days and the bad days. How many times are we looking for that authentic interpersonal relationship, whether within our families, whether at work, or just with people that we need to interact with? Jump into the conversation with Nick Woodard and I on this episode of the GST Factor podcast. On today's episode, I'm excited to have Nick Woodard. Hi, Nick. How are you today?
Hey, how's it going? Glad to be here.
Great to have you, Nick. So, Nick, share with our podcast listeners today a little bit about you and your story and what you do for a living.
Yeah, sure. I'm a local realtor. I joke with people all the time. I've spent pretty much my whole life here. My family moved here in 1988. We grew up in Carriage Hills right off of Wilson Pike there. And before Cool Springs, before, all that out there, and jokingly say that, we were so far out in the country, we couldn't even get pizza delivered to the house. And now, you got Cool Springs right there. So I've seen a lot of changes. Grew up, went to Brentwood High School, went to NTSU, and decided to get into real estate until I figured out what I wanted to do for a living. And it's been 20 years. So I guess this is what I'm doing for a living.
Amazing. I love having fellow Nashvillians on the podcast. It's obviously, having been here myself for about 30 years, it's always fun to kind of advocate and amplify our Nashville story. But yeah. Nick, what I love about what you do in the real estate business, you certainly dream big. You are, thinking of things differently and creatively. And in your most recent newsletter, you had a section in there about talking about your losses and your wins. And I think in today's day and age, so many of us, especially in the social media world, we're all about let's, put the positives out there, put the highs, and we're not necessarily transparently or vulnerably showing the losses or those vulnerable moments. And so maybe talk our listeners through a little bit about, what you shared in the newsletter, but where that came from and why you think it is so important to really share not just the wins, but also the losses.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that newsletter article, first what it was, I've actually gotten a lot of attention off of that, not expecting or that's not what I was going for. I'm just raw, authentically me. I'm not for everybody. I'll say that right out of the gate. I have things that I stand on that are important to me, and I proudly voice those things. I'm a Christian. I'm an outdoorsman. I'm a father, conservative. All those things. And I learned a long time ago that, if you're fully authentically you attract more than you turn away. Of course, you're going to have people turn away from you. That's fine. You'd rather work with people that you have a natural connection with. And especially with social media being, all of my new clients find me on social media before they reach out to me. So I got to a place where I wanted to be authentically me. And so people can kind of get a feel for who they're working with long before we meet. And that article, back to that article, it was about, I said earlier that I grew up in a neighborhood off of Wilson Pike. So I had a homeowner reach out to me. This was, 2-3 months ago, about potentially listing their property. So it was in Carriage Hills. It was literally 4 doors down from where my parents still live. I know everything about that neighborhood. I grew up there. I used to camp where this house sits now. I don't want to say I went in there overly confident, which I didn't. I go into every listing appointment as humble as possible, but try to show my knowledge and understanding of the market in the area and all that. But long story short, I 100% expected to get that listing, and I was called and said I was not chosen to represent them, and no clue why. It's fine, you lose things sometimes, but it was shocking. It really was. I was so confident that I was going to get that deal, and I didn't. So I just decided, you know what? I think social media is used too much as a personal highlight reel, and you get to see the best of what everybody has going on in their lives, but nobody shows the losses. And I think for someone to truly understand someone and know them fully, they need to see not just the wins but the losses as well.
And I think that ties in so well with, some of our attributes, right? We talk about in the GST Factor life of being confident and inquisitive and imaginative, be present, resilient, and influential. And I think, through this story, you've touched on a number of those. And I think when we are our true, authentic selves unapologetically, it's what you see is what you get. And I think that, in this day and age, there's something really special about finding those truly authentic people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about, you know, other people you work with in your daily life. I mean, yes, you expect people to be professional, but I tend to connect with people that are genuine. I can feel what they stand for and who they are as a person, not just a doctor or a lawyer or a dentist. Like, I'm more of a personal connection type person. So that I'm always looking for a way to connect with people on a personal level, not just take them at face value or what I see on their highlight reel. I want to know someone truly for who they are. And I think if you're vulnerable enough to allow people to see that in you, whatever your business is, it's going to increase. I got to a place where there's I don't know the numbers, but how many realtors are there here in Nashville? You're competing, and everybody tries to be the uber professional. You even hear stories of people renting luxury cars to go show property and stuff. It's not me. That's not me. I drive a truck. I wear a ball cap, jeans, and boots, and I still sell a lot of houses. So people are going to connect with people that they are similar to, and that's just the law of nature.
What I also love about that, I have a friend in the marketing space, and she talks about the importance of people knowing you and then liking you and then
Oh
being
yeah.
able to trust you before they do business with you. And I think that
Uh-huh.
that's really what you're leaning into, right? Is, putting yourself out there as your true authentic self, the good, the bad, the in between, shows people like, hey, this is who Nick is, and they like it or they don't like it, and that's okay. And then but when they see that, they know that the authenticity is there, that and then now that trust is starting, and so then they can start to decide to do business with you.
Sure. And I was on a podcast recently, a real estate marketing podcast, and kind of the reason I changed a lot of my social media stuff was because of that podcast, and I learned to be authentically you. So I did a Instagram reel that was me out at my farm shooting and fishing, and had the kids out there and showing wildlife and all that stuff. Well, that may turn off a lot of extreme professionals, but ever since I put that out there, I've gained at least 7 or 8 new clients that saw that reel that were like, that's what I want to move to Tennessee for. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this guy gets it. And that was a huge eye opener for me. Because in all reality, I didn't really put that out there to just grab a whole bunch of new clients. It was just, hey, I want to make a reel. And I had all these hunting and fishing and shooting videos on my phone and kind of threw it together. And I had no idea what it would become.
That's amazing. I love that. Now, Nick's out of our GST factor attributes, which is that one that you really are resonating with at this time?
Probably go with resiliency was one of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think to have success in anything, you have to be resilient. You have a lot of these people, just going back to the social media piece. I mean, that's just one tiny little piece of it. But if you're going to be successful in anything, you have to be willing to put yourself out there, and you have to be able to be told no and continue on. You cannot give up. You can't not do something because you're a little bit concerned about what someone's going to think or say, or is someone going to judge you? The answer is yeah. They will judge you. They will think negatively of you. But you know what? That's fine. That's okay. You have to be able to get past that and strive forward, because that's where success comes. And I think every loss, every negative comment, anything like that, that's a lesson. There's something in there. So, not everything is a loss. Even if you don't win at it, you at least learn something from it, and you can change your habits and move forward even stronger. But there's so much negativity out there that if you don't learn how to navigate through it and have thick skin, you're just not going to find success to the levels that you can.
Absolutely. And we talk a lot about within the GST factor life and the books and the workbooks that we can learn something from everything. We can learn something, whether it's whichever media it is, but also people. And it's learning, perhaps we're learning what to do, or maybe we're learning what not to do. And when we have that lens of what can I learn from this? What can I take from this? It really gives us that different perspective and that glass half full lens on life, which I think is really important in today's day and age.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of wasted time. Like, I'm always thirsting for knowledge. Anything I
Mm.
watch, I don't sit and just aimlessly watch TV. I'll watch something that I can learn from. I don't sit on Instagram and scroll through it to kill time. I'm usually following successful people, seeing what they're doing and trying to duplicate that. So a lot of the social media stuff I've done is me having sat around for hours following other people, going through all of their content, seeing what's working for them. You can save it on your phone and go back and duplicate it with your own little twist on it, and then kind of figure out what results come from that, reanalyze it, and then continue to do that. I think there's just a lot of wasted time when you can be actually learning from those same habits, but making them more productive.
I love that. And I think it's that taking what's out there in the world, transforming it for yourself, testing it, pausing, pivoting, and relaunching it, and figuring out what aligns with your what you call your raw authentic me. And I think that that's so important. It's being inquisitive to learn and to gather that information, then transforming it to align with your own life.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to adapt. You have to adapt with what's going around you. Me being in the real estate industry, there's some major shakeups that are potentially on the way, and we're going to have to learn how to navigate that. It's not going to halt the market or significantly change the way we do things, but those that don't adapt to it are going to end up getting passed by.
So, what is Nick Woodard powerfully choosing in 2024?
You know what? I made some major changes last year, and that was to authentically be me everywhere I go, whether that be, with clients, with on social media, with my kids, whatever. Just be authentically me, and not shy away from who I am. Again, like I said, I'm not for everybody. I'm kind of bold, and a lot of people don't handle that well. But I'm also extremely respectful, knowledgeable, and caring, and I've got values that I stand on. I just want to continue to be raw and authentic, and hopefully that connects me with like-minded people that, like you said, you know, like, and trust. I mean, that's the major factor in finding someone you want to work with, whatever industry it is finding those that you know, like, and trust. And if you're authentically you, people have a better opportunity to get to know you.
Absolutely. And I think that shines through. I love this. I love, the Nick, the Nick that you are hearing today is the Nick that is on social, is the Nick that's in the work, and it's the Nick that, works in our community. And so thank you for doing that. Thank you for that advocacy. I think the takeaways for our listeners today is, being your true authentic self is going to give you that confidence and that resiliency. And as we like to say here, it helps us get shit done. Or if we have our younger tiny humans, it's our get stuff done. But I think that, when we are bold, as you said, and just putting ourselves out there. I just recently read a book called The Courage to Be Disliked, and it really talks about that authenticity and saying we're not everybody's cup of tea, right? We're not and when you put yourself out there and know that people are not going to like you, there is a transformation that happens, but it's also very freeing. And you're not worried about being that people pleaser. You're not worried about trying to, be perfect for everyone, because we can never be. And so I loved definitely portions of that book, because there is that boldness and that courage to just be out there because that's who we are, and that's who our creator made us to be. And I love that. So Nick, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Listeners, we'll be sure to include all of Nick's connecting information in the show notes. And if you are looking for someone who is bold and authentic in the Nashville area, be sure to reach out to Nick. So Nick, thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, friend. I appreciate you.
Yes. All right, listeners. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast, talking about our raw, authentic selves and talking about resiliency. And we appreciate all of you. And don't forget to get shit done.
Thanks for listening to the GSD Factor podcast. If you liked this episode, please rate and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, where you can also find previous episodes. Let's also connect on LinkedIn and Instagram. If you're looking for more information on the GSD Factor, visit us at gsdfactor.com. And always remember to GSD, get shit done.